Welcome back to another take from We Killin' It.
I'm Tyler.
I'm Matt.
Kindy.
Before we go in today's episode, I just wanted to take a second to say thank you so much for listening, squad, and for helping this show by liking on YouTube or leaving a 5-star ratings and positive review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps the show get on the charts and for more people like us to discover it. So thank you again so very much.
And without further ado, on to the fun.
What is going on, squad? Today on We Killin' It, we started a 3-part take on M. Night Shyamalan's comic-themed trilogy. We're all so excited to do this film. It is Unbreakable. It's a 2000 M. Night Shyamalan film. It stars Bruce Willis, Samuel L. Jackson, Spencer Clark, Robin Wright, and Charlene Woodard. The director of photography is Eduardo Serra. If I'm not mistaken, Kindy, you've seen this before, right?
I've seen it maybe twice before, yep.
Okay. All right. And Matt, you too, right?
I've seen it once or twice before, yeah, but I didn't really remember too much of it.
Okay. Now the great part about this and most other M. Night Shyamalan movies is you can watch them a bunch of times, because the great part about these movies is the stuff that goes on in the background and the stuff that you didn't notice the first time.
Yeah, I like how he inserts himself into the movie too later. It's a really nice touch.
Mhm.
Oh, he does that in all his movies. He's got a Stan Lee cameo in every one of his movies, bro.
I love it. That's how I would do it, man.
Me too,
Right.
man. Okay, so I guess it would just start out with the film. It starts out with a baby being born in Philadelphia. He's so brittle that he's born with broken arms and legs, and it's crazy reaction from the doctor, because especially the time in which this baby was born. He looks at the all the white doctors and nurses, and he's like, what did you do to this baby? Like, did you drop this baby? Because I'm sure a baby with broken arms and legs looks crazy messed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. That baby was in so much pain.
Oh, it's terrible, and it wouldn't stop crying. It's terrible.
All that mom wanted was her baby back too. He was like, "What's wrong with him? Can I have my baby back?"
Yeah, bro, it's messed up. As he gets older, he's taunted in school and called by his classmates. Since he's so fragile, they call him Mr. Glass. And as an adult, he runs a pretty successful high-priced comic book art gallery specializing in original drawings of superheroes. David Dunn is a security guard. He's played by Mr. Glass is played by Samuel L. Jackson, and David Dunn
Right.
is played by Bruce Willis. Welcome to the party, pal. He's a security guard at a local college stadium, and his marriage is falling apart. In fact, his wife Audrey is sleeping downstairs in their son's room while David sleeps upstairs with his son, which is like, there's a lot of cute moments in it, but if you like really think about that, that's so sad, bro.
Yeah, it's pretty. Oh.
Yeah, man. This kid is like holding his parents together with all his might.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's sad, man. On his way back home from a job interview in New York, David, because he's planning on leaving to start his new life in New York without his wife, and David's train malfunction and derails, killing everyone on board except for David. He doesn't even have a scratch. And
Not one bit.
I love this scene because he's afterwards he's sitting in the hospital and he just woke up. He doesn't know what's going on, and the doctor's like asking him all these crazy questions, but the shot itself is it's back in the next like curtained area over, and you're just hearing the beeping of this patient, and you see this body there, and then slowly, like, as they're talking, blood comes out of the body and like the patient dies, and it's real nuts.
Yeah, the
Mhm.
entire scene is just so dark, and it keeps you there in that moment, just silently listening to the doctor and then watching this body get worked on and then bleed out, and it's really suspenseful, and I love it.
It's also very, very off-putting too, because this guy, he just woke up and now this doctor's asking him all these questions while there's a
Another
lot
guy.
of another guy just right there in front of him, like not surviving, basically.
Yeah.
And it's just such a discordant way to wake up and try to figure out what's going on.
Oh, for sure. And just before that, he was like flirting with some sports lady, and then she was like, being friendly with him, and then he got a little too creepy, and then she kind of dipped out. But like literally that happened, and then this happened. And then that little girl like stared at him with like more judgment than I've ever seen in my entire life.
Bro, for
The
real.
little
Like
girl in the seat in front of him.
it was a cute scene from the beginning though, like the first time he saw her, she was all upside down in between the seat, and then
Yeah.
he tries talking up the girl, and then she leaves, and the little girl is just like, bro,
Nope.
Bruh,
bro, L.
roasted.
But it makes me sad too because, that little girl didn't survive.
Yeah, man. It's really,
Oh
It's
damn, I didn't
really
just,
think about
crazy.
that.
he had that cute little moment with her and then she's just gone. This man is
Well,
dealing with a lot when he wakes up.
when it comes to that situation, there's a devastating train crash, and there are no
Yeah.
survivors except for David, and he doesn't even have a scratch. After the memorial service for the crash victims, David finds a note on his windshield, and it's from a store called Limited Edition. And this envelope is gorgeous, like baby blue paper, and it's like really pretty, like silver embossed font. And it's like dark blue on the inside of the envelope. Like even that, just the envelope was fire. Like
The envelope was dressed to the
It,
nines.
the envelope was making a statement. This is not your run of the mill rando stalker. This is a high class stalker.
Right.
the
This isn't just some random mail. No, no. This is a parcel.
that limited edition store is actually Mr. Glass's store. Mr. Glass is actually, his actual name is Elijah Price, but for all intents and purposes and for the rest of this saga, I'm going to call him Mr. Glass. And the note itself, it says, how many days of your life have you been sick, which is a really interesting question. Like who the hell knows how many days of their life they've been sick. But
Right.
David
But
asked his boss, he asked his wife, and no one can remember him being sick. In fact, when we were watching it, like his wife, like she was getting kind of like attitudey about it, or like uncomfortable, maybe like with just thinking about it, and she started
yeah.
being like, pushed off by it.
Yeah.
He got a $40 a week raise from his boss though, because out of 5 years of working there, he's never
Yeah,
called off sick.
that guy was like, "Yeah, that's a smart way to get a raise, buddy." Like I
I
never
was like,
seen it like that
okay,
before.
like I'll take it, but that wasn't the point. But thank you.
But thank you.
Yeah, man, bro, that's a huge raise.
When no one can explain to David why he's sick, he takes his son Joseph to Limited Edition where he meets Mr. Glass. Mr. Glass then explains
Oh
a
my
theory to
gosh.
David.
I love the limited edition store.
Dude,
Like
it's so
before,
fire. Everything's all
It's
clean and
beautiful.
and
it's
glass
a
and stuff.
yeah, it's a super pretty gallery. And like before David and Joseph go in there, Elijah or Mr. Glass is talking to another customer inside already, and he's showing him one of the pieces.
Pieces.
And the quote is, "This is from Fritz Champion's own library. This is before the first issue of the comic book hit the stands in 1968. It's a classic depiction of good versus evil. Notice the square jaw of Slayer, common in most comic book heroes, and the slightly disproportionate size of Jaguaro's body to his head. This again is common, but only in villains. The thing to notice about this piece, the thing that makes it very, very special, is its realistic depiction of its figures. When the characters eventually made it into the magazine, they were exaggerated, as always happens. This is vintage." And it's just so amazing because that comic, that piece of the first edition, was made before that comic was released, and that was the first comic he ever got from his mom.
Yeah, because before that we saw a scene of Glass as a younger kid, probably like 12, and his mother's trying to force him outside. And she does it by putting a present out there, and he opens it up, and it's that comic book that Matt's talking about.
Yeah. And talking about that scene, when they pan up the window to see the purple present outside the window, like that's just a great scene, a great shot.
So Mr. Glass explains his theory to David. If Mr. Glass can be born with brittle bones and very easily hurt, shouldn't there be someone the exact opposite? He's researched every disaster to find a sole survivor without a scratch, and he's had no luck. And after years of searching, he finally found one in David Dunn. David thinks it's interesting, but really
And I
just
want to
thinks it's
say
nuts.
too, at this scene when they're talking, everything visually is off kilter. It's nothing is centered, nothing's quite framed like it would be as if they were aligning because David's in denial. He doesn't really believe Mr. Glass or he doesn't want to admit it.
Yeah. I feel
So
I feel like
everything is
Sorrow really
shot at
killed
an
that.
yeah, everything is shot at an angle and you can visually see the discordance between them as well as hear it in what they're saying.
I agree. It's a great shot. It's a great scene
Mhm.
in general.
Sorrow does a really good job
Uh,
of showing what they're thinking just through the camera.
Hmm.
I also love that it's active comics instead of action comics, which was a
I
really
thought it
cool
was Action Comics.
little
Like
thing
my
to
brain just auto rewrote that for me.
Just boop.
and I also love that, like, I love glasses. So, that piece that you were talking about in your quote, that rich guy was trying to buy it, and then he was like, my son will love it. And I really love how Glass reacts because it's art. Especially what Glass was selling is art. That
Precious,
was
precious art.
Yeah.
that was like a drawing of the cover before it was the cover. That literally, and it was encased in glass
Mhm.
and shit. And he was like, no,
You're not
you're
giving
not
this
buying
to
that
your
for your
4-year-old.
four-year-old
No.
son. You can leave now. Goodbye. And I appreciate that, because a lot of people think that comic books and toys are always for children, but that's
Oh
not the
no.
case. If that was the case, some toys wouldn't cost $350 and some comic books wouldn't be thousands of
Yeah.
dollars.
They're important stories and they're important ways of chronicalizing what's going on between the scenes for the people that write them.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
actually have the quote for when he's telling that guy off.
Oh.
Go for
Do you see any Teletubbies in here? Do you see a slender
it.
plastic tag clipped to my shirt with my name printed on it? Do you see a little Asian child with a blank expression on his face sitting outside on a mechanical helicopter that shakes you when you put quarters in it? No? Well, that's what you see at a toy store. And you must think you're in a toy store because you're here shopping for an infant named Jeb.
It's great. He's
Man.
so offended, bro.
That
And I just want to throw in there when David thinks he's like hearing all these explanations and he's starting to think that this guy's crazy. David's son, Joseph, completely and 100% bites in. Now he is young, but he's down.
He's
He's
like
like, this is
Randy.
true. This is the truth right here.
well, sure. He's seen his dad walk away from this horrific train crash. Like that man didn't even have a singe on him.
Yeah. It leaves
Right,
mental, but it
right,
doesn't leave anything physical.
Right.
right.
It's always left a heavy mental because of that, in my opinion. I feel like since he's
Oh,
lost that
sure.
one, it elevates another field.
For sure. I agree completely.
There's a lot of survivor's guilt going on in both cases, honestly, Mr. Glass and David.
So David and Joseph leave, and David goes back to do his job at the stadium. And David gets a call on his radio that there's someone trying to sneak in, and he's asking for him. And it's Mr. Glass. And he starts explaining his comic book theories to David in more depth. Theories about everyday men being superheroes and having powers that they haven't yet realized, and so on and so forth. David bumps into a guy in line and tells the security at the end of the line to start frisking people. They watch as the guy David bumped into sees everyone being frisked and leaves the line. Mr. Glass asked David, what that was about, and why did David tell him that he bumped into him? And it was because David had an image of a certain type of handgun, a silver handgun with a black uh pistol grip. That's my favorite of his powers. Like, it's really
Mhm.
cool to be indestructible and all, but this man's heart or whatever is so
His
good that
intuition and everything.
he sees the inner evil and the evil that they're doing inside people, and that's really
He
cool.
has a touch sense, and it seemed, I don't know if it's just his reaction to seeing it or if he's also getting like an emotional feedback from it too. Because, ooh, it's a lot.
We do find out a little bit more of it in Split, but there I do believe he gets the fear that the victims are
Mm.
feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a heavy
Ah,
one.
oh
Talk
no.
about kryptonite, bro.
Bro, I'm saying Glass follows that guy. So he sees him. He David tells Glass to, try to get in with a real ticket next time, and David goes back to work, and Mr. Glass sees that guy, so he follows him to the train station.
Yeah.
Now, I want to give a couple of slight trigger warnings for this movie. Inside this film, there is a very gross display of racism that unfortunately is very common in the United States, uh, where a group of Black people are assaulted, as well as there is a lot of pain in this movie. Mr. Glass he's glass for bones, basically. So he gets there. It's pain. It feels painful, and you can feel it, especially in this next scene, because he's trying to find out if this guy's got a gun, and chasing him down the stairs into the subway, he falls,
Oh man, does he
and
fall?
it
Yeah.
it's so
Oh,
rough. His cane shatters and he falls, and you just hear his bones break. The guy jumps the turnstile, the guy he was chasing, and Glass sees the pistol in his waistband, exactly where David said it was going to be, and he kind of like smiles and then passes
Yeah.
out.
so much pain.
Vindication.
I was like, well,
And
was
I
it
can
worth
rest.
it? Nah, man, he wakes
um
up from that and his leg is completely demolished.
Yeah.
Yeah, he ends up having that metal thing with the pins in it, holding it together. Oof. Oof.
And then after we see him fall like Peter Griffin, um as rude as that might be, but like he falls exactly like Peter Griffin. Um we see David getting off the bus and then seeing his son and a bunch of other kids and a quarterback playing football on a field, and his son is just so happy to see him like throughout the entirety of the scene, like until the very next scene, like he is just
Bro, and through the entirety of this film, this kid loves his daddy more than any kid has ever loved their
bro,
daddy.
he's like 100% attached to that dad. But back at the park, he's just like, come on, like, I told them you'd be good at football, and we got another big guy that you can play with over there. And it was the quarterback that we heard about on the train from that
She was a
a
newscaster. A
newscaster. Yeah.
newscaster.
It was the Tampa quarterback that she was talking about, and he was like, I'm good. I don't want to do that. Your mom would kill you if she found out you were playing football." And the kid was just like, "You're not gonna
Bro.
tell though, right?"
Bro.
a lot of
You're not gonna tell
a lot
mom,
of
right?
trauma around
No.
football with this family.
Yeah.
I love that part. I love that part because he's like, "You want to play? Do you want to play? Do you want to play?" And he's like, "No, I'm gonna work out." And then the kid's like, "Guys, I can't play, but I gotta go work out with my dad."
Yeah. Whatever dad wants to do is what we're doing.
Oh
He's so
man.
cute.
They go back home, and David's working out in the basement with his weight set. And he tells his son to put some weight on, and his son believed everything that was being said about David being a hero, and David still doesn't believe it. David has his son put the weights on, and
He's just going.
yeah, he's just pushing it. Joseph puts the weight on, and then he's just pushing
Mhm.
it. He asks him how much he's pushing, and he's like, I don't know. How much is that? And David turns around. It's
He was
250
Like,
like,
wait a
"That's too
minute,
pounds.
that's too
much."
And he's
much.
like,
You could hurt
it's
somebody.
too much.
And he's like, okay, okay,
um,
I'll take it off. I'll take it off. Okay.
yeah. And
We hear
then
some clinking around and he's struggling and
he pushes and pushes and pushes, and he's like, okay, how much was that? And the little kid's like, I lied.
I added.
I fibbed.
it was great.
He added more weight, and it's like it was like basically 300 pounds. And then David put on some paint cans because then he got real curious, which is like 10 pounds of weight, 10 pounds of paint cans. So he had 4 of them on there.
And with each addition of weight, the kid steps back a little bit further in case something
Oh my
spectacular
gosh.
explodes or something. I don't know what they thought was going to happen.
It was like, look, man.
That last one where he was behind the
He's
door
like,
frame.
if something
Closet.
happens, what do? Go get
Go
mom.
get mom. And because, like, you can see the look on his face with the last one. He's contemplating what he's about to do. If this is my breaking point, this is going to break my neck. Okay,
And if you
let's
think
do
about
it.
it,
Let's go.
as an average, like, because he's basically an average Joe, but with superpowers that he didn't even know about this entire time. So like this is his training montage. Like how Tony Stark had a really dope like training flying montage. This is the average Joe montage when he's just working out in his basement.
Trying to find the limit. So then he's all agog, the kid's all agog, and just, hero worship dialed up to 1,000.
Yeah. Like, oh my God, you
Yep.
are God.
And then let's go have dinner.
Oh no, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kid.
Mr. Glass needs his leg rehabbed, and his nurse just so happens to be Audrey, David's wife, or soon to be ex-wife. He's asking her weird questions, and then he starts asking her about David, and he really gets to her because she's like, actually, let's not talk about that. Let's talk about you. And then she like starts to talk to him, and then she's like, then she goes back to like, I couldn't marry a football player. This conversation is really interesting because Audrey says some weird stuff. So we find out that David was in a car accident and he was injured and no longer allowed to play football.
That he was a star football player for his town.
Right. He was probably gonna go pro.
Yeah.
Just like the guy that we were talking about earlier that was playing football with the
The
kids.
Tampa quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Audrey says to Glass, she says, fate stepped in and ruined my husband's dream so we could be happy together. Ew.
That's
Ew.
just
But she
evil.
later says to David, I would never wish that you get injured to save our relationship. So very different everything's that she's saying there. I don't even think she's being honest to herself.
Nah.
She's just saying shit.
David never played football again. And it was because of that she and David were married and they continued. But if he continued to play, she knows that they would have grown apart, which is like a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. Back at work, David gets a call from his son's school that his son has been hurt. His son had hoped that some of David's superhero traits had rubbed off on him. He tried to protect someone that was being picked on, and instead he got hurt in the process.
Yeah.
That's a pretty old tale. We've any good-hearted person's probably been there. The school nurse, there's a weird conversation between the school nurse and David at that point. The school nurse is like, he's not really badly hurt. It's just a couple of scratches. It's not near as bad as it was when I sent you to the hospital. And David's like, what are you talking about? What? Like, what do you mean? And she starts telling this crazy story about when David was a little boy and he drowned and laid at the bottom of the pool for 5 minutes.
But somehow survived.
They pulled him out. Right. They like somehow survived. And that would have caused brain damage because anything past 5 minutes causes brain damage.
Sure.
I don't know. That must be where he got his powers. I don't know where he got his powers, but it had to be after that. You know what I mean? Unless he always had his powers and, just anybody who puts water in their lungs is going to die.
Yeah. It was a lot because he said he had pneumonia too. So
Right.
it's only a weakness to a water-based problem.
That was the only time he got sick.
And then the nurse says, you know, it was because of this, because of David, that they have like real strict rules at the pool now. And I'm curious why David suppressed this memory. Out of all the memories that have happened to David, he suppressed this memory and the car crash. Is it because he's never felt pain that any pain that he does have, he suppresses it? You know what I'm saying?
It could be, or it's overwhelming his brain.
Yeah.
Oh no.
David immediately calls Mr. Glass and tells that story. That in fact, David can get hurt. Tells him that but then Mr. Glass tells him, you know, every superhero has a weakness. David's kryptonite must be water. The water from the pool and the water from the icy roads. Now, David's wife is really wishy-washy throughout this whole film. She really doesn't know what she wants. So it's very confusing for the viewer and for David.
Yeah, she's all over the place.
You know, she decides that him surviving the train crash is a sign that, you know, they need to stay together. They need to fix it. They need to go out. You know, she says, you can pick me up from a date anytime you want to.
Let's just start over. Like,
yeah. He explains to her that he felt their marriage was over when he stopped waking her up to tell her that he had a bad dream. You know, because they're sitting at dinner and she's like, so he's like asking questions and trying to forget it, and they're just having drinks and he's trying to have a good time with her, and he asks her like a normal question and then she goes, when do you think it all started falling apart?
Oh, thanks.
Which is like, so it's very interesting to me how she breached that subject in the first place. It was the wrong time, but he says, you know, when I started having bad dreams and I stopped waking you up to tell you. And that's kind of freaking sad, y'all. Like,
yeah, they drifted apart for a long time, it seems like.
The next night, David breaks into the train station and examines some of the wrecked trains. He starts recalling his own car crash from years earlier, and he remembers that he wasn't hurt at all. In fact, he had to use his above normal strength to rescue Audrey from the flaming vehicle.
Yeah, he just tore that door open.
Bro, he Hercules.
Yeah.
He was
like, it was amazing.
It warped the car.
And then he like carried her over, and then the guy was like, are you hurt? Are you hurt? Are you hurt? And I guess he was like, yeah, my knee.
My knee.
You know,
I got a picture of it.
Bro. He actually calls Glass and tells Glass immediately, yo, I wasn't hurt in that car accident. And Glass knew, you know.
Yeah. He was just like, okay, fine, you're right.
He tells Glass he's never been sick or injured in any way. He tells him Glass tells him it's no coincidence that David is in the security field. He needs to go where people are and protect them. And so David does. It's a really rainy day, and David is wearing his like security poncho for the field, and he heads to Penn Station. There's hundreds of people. It's Penn Station. Like there's if not hundreds, like 1,000 people in this one place. He like is like moving his body and spreading out his hands so he can just touch them just a little bit, right? Touch them just a little bit. He gets some really crazy flashes. And I'm going to give a trigger warning for this part too, because it's a little rough. Right before David did this, he was telling his son, and his wife was also telling his son, that there was no power. And he was denying it. He was saying, no, we don't have this. And David's son, like, literally believed that more than Mr. Glass did. And he was like having a mental breakdown. And there's a trigger warning here, but they literally turn around. And Joseph is sitting at a table with a snub-nosed pistol.
Like,
and I would have, my heart would have fallen through my feet.
Gun safety, David.
He was like, don't worry. He doesn't know where the bullets are. Bruh.
Yeah, it's not loaded. It's okay. Joseph, did you load that pistol? Yeah.
The bullets were behind the trophy.
I don't even know how to handle something like this. Because if you scare that kid, you're going to get shot. Like, there's just so many situations, like so many things that lead to you getting shot in this situation.
All the anxiety.
That's just so sketchy.
Like, the kid is just like at his wits' end. You know, he's seen this most amazing thing, and everyone's just denying it. It's like, come on,
Yeah.
you can't get hurt.
Yep.
Why are you lying?
Man.
Yeah.
And he goes, I love the line. It's a messed up scene. It is a really messed up scene, and gun safety is not something to play with, but the he's like, if you shoot me with that, I'm gonna die. I don't have superpowers, and I will die if you shoot me with that. And the kid's like, I'll just shoot him once.
I'll just shoot him once. Just to test.
Casually. And then to get him, Joseph, to understand, David bites in and he's like, look, I do have superpowers, but if you shoot me with that, I'm gonna leave and I'm gonna go to New York and I'm gonna leave you. And
You know,
that works.
he just starts
Mhm.
crying. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
It's like, this is the coolest thing from a little
Obviously
kid's
that
point of view. My dad's a superhero. Wait, why aren't we doing the superhero thing? You know, and all he sees is his parents being sad and unhappy, and this kid just breaks.
Yeah, it's insane. He's just so heartbroken. Nobody's listening.
It's just
And it's
tearing
just
him
so
apart.
it's just tearing him apart. David is walking around Penn Station and he's feeling people and he starts to get images. And then in this part, there's another little bit of a trigger warning because we do see some pretty disturbing things. Like the first thing we see is a woman pointing at she's at a jewelry store and she's got this thing that the jeweler is showing her, and she points and he turns and she steals one of the bracelets, and then he touches another person and we see
There's a domestic
woman.
abuse. There's a lot.
Yeah, it's a really gross display of domestic abuse, and then that's when we also see the racist part where they hurt some random people on the street for no reason. And then it goes to some guy with it where it looks like he killed this woman and he's got some others tied up in his house or whatever.
Yeah, he's just
So
like,
David
can I
starts
come
to
in? Can I come in? I really
Yeah.
like your house. I think you should let me in.
No, and that man should have shut the
No.
door.
Yeah.
No.
Man.
Yeah, he rips that screen door hard, bro. It's messed up. David walks into the neighborhood and he's got the poncho on and it's like flowing behind him, kind of like a Superman cape. It's really, really awesome, actually, because like he gets his like superhero shot, like his superhero
He getting all
movie moment, right?
sneaking around, all stealthy to follow the bad guy.
And the bad guy was the janitor at Penn Station. And so he followed them in a nice neighborhood and took over that house, and David followed him and sneaks into the back and he finds the homeowner dead inside. And he goes upstairs and he sees two women tied up, one to a radiator and one in the bathroom, and he goes and he unties them and saves them. And then there's a third person tied up and he goes and unties that person, and then she falls over. She's been dead.
Wait, there's an important scene before that.
Go ahead.
Before he unties her, he like walks out onto the balcony, and then the murderer is behind him, and then tackles him.
Oh yeah, you're right. He like bum rush tackles him into the pool.
Yeah, and the pool
Dude,
sews the tarp on, and then it starts sinking in on him, and
he's
David is
drowning.
just he's drowning and struggling to get out of the pool,
Dude,
all
that's
wrapped
gotta
up
be
and shit.
scary.
It'd be awful.
That's gotta be so
Dude,
scary.
Like drowning
'Cause, like,
itself
once
is
that
scary.
but once that plastic wraps around you, that's
oh,
it,
Yeah,
bro.
man.
you
If it
can't
wasn't for the
see.
girls he saved.
I love he
Yep.
saved the babies and then the babies saved him.
Yeah.
Yep. As it should be.
Yeah.
When he turns, the maintenance worker pushes him into the pool. Suddenly the cover starts collapsing and David's weight gets all tangled up underwater with the cover. He's drowning again, but the two sisters force a pole down to him. It's like the skimmer pole, and David grabs it and he gets pulled up and he's saved. It's like
Whew.
like a dramatic,
He gasps for
like
air
heart-wrenching,
as
yeah.
hard as he can. He was like,
Right. And like once he's out of the water, he's fine.
Yeah.
And he goes
Yeah.
back upstairs and proceeds to
choke
not
that man
effectively
out.
kick
and-
butt, but he kicked some butt.
Yeah, he gets on that guy's back and he gets him in that sleeper hold, and that guy slams him, like keeps it like, get off of me.
Yeah.
Like he just
He did a suicide jump into the wall too. Like he flung
he did
him.
everything he could.
Used every
David ends
bit
up
of life
breaking
he
his neck
had.
Man,
and just pulls until his neck is broken. And this is a big old boy. Bruce
yeah.
Willis is like, I don't know. Bruce Willis is probably like 5'9", 5'10". This dude's like 6'4", 6'5". Like he was a big dude.
And then
The next scene, go ahead.
he realizes when he's trying to untie the mom that she's been dead.
It was really messed up, man. Like that whole section was messed up, but that's what David's for. That's to get rid of that evil. That's why he can see their evil.
Yeah.
The next scene is David back at home hanging up his cape or his poncho and carrying his sleeping wife upstairs to their bed. I really like this scene because the way the camera is either mounted or next to David, it kind of just hovers. There's no like walking motion to the camera. It's just hovering with them. It's really cool. It like is showing his strength on holding her.
Mhm. He's all nice and steady with her, and she's just gazing up at him like, oh, there you are.
Yeah, because she wakes up and asks him what's wrong, and he goes, I had a bad dream. You know, and that's just damn good line. That's a damn good line. In the morning, while having breakfast, David slides the newspaper over to his son and holds a finger to his mouth to shush him, and it kind of like points with his eyes. And the kid looks at it, and it's a headline that tells of a mystery hero that saved the two girls. And the picture is like an artist rendition of what the girl saw, and it's like this like hood and cape, like superhero pose. It's really cute. And the boy looks up, dude. The boy look like he he looks up with so much like awe.
Right. Like he's had dead eyes the
Joseph's
whole
face, like,
movie, and now they're finally bright.
yeah, it's just big old blue eyes, and just his mouth open and stuff. He looks so happy.
David
Dude,
It's
David
it's
great.
powerful.
David just
It's
mouths you were
great.
right, and it's just
Yeah.
the final touch.
Bro, it was great. It was so great. David goes to Mr. Glass's gallery, and this is like the crescendo of the film where everything's starting to come together. And there's a huge gathering for a special show. And he and David go to Mr. Glass's back office so they can discuss what had happened. Mr. Glass has been in a wheelchair since his fall down the subway tunnel. He's really proud of David, and they shake hands. Suddenly, David has a vision of Mr. Glass setting a building on fire, and another vision of Mr. Glass causing a plane crash, and another vision of Mr. Glass exiting the train that crashed. David looks at Mr. Glass's office and he's horrified at what he sees. He sees like newspaper clippings of hundreds of disasters from around the world. And Mr. Glass seems to be the mastermind behind all of these events and has staged them for his own selfish benefit of trying to find someone that is the opposite of him. Someone like David. And, David is a hero. He backs away in horror as Mr. Glass, who is in a wheelchair now and looks more like Professor X from the X-Men, proclaims, now that we know who you are, I know who I am. I'm not a mistake. It all makes sense. In a comic, you know how you can tell who the arch villains are going to be? He's the exact opposite of the hero. And most of the time, they're friends, like you and me. I should have known way back when. You know why, David? Because of the kids. They called me Mr. Glass. And just before the final credits, a message appears that says that David contacted the authorities and now Mr. Glass is in an institution for the criminally insane. And then the credits roll. Ugh!
It was so good.
And I have to say, I did that whole quote because that's my favorite quote in the film. It's just so good. And, Samuel Jackson destroyed this role. Bruce Willis plays that like sad character that you don't generally see Bruce Willis play. Like, I just loved it.
I love too when David first gets to this final scene, and everyone's there at the gallery for the party, and he gets to meet Mr. Glass's mother. And she's telling him about the
Yeah.
artwork and how in comic books there's always the villain and the superhero. And they got to talking about how proud she is of her son and all that he's accomplished. And they get to talking about it's amazing all that he's gone through. And she gets this kind of look on her face. Yeah, he's gone through a lot of suffering. David says it's almost a miracle that he's survived. And she gets this really haunted look on her face and doesn't really seem to agree or disagree with him. And then they go back
Yeah.
to the
She
office. It makes me wonder how much he knew.
she and we'll definitely see it more as we go through Split and Mr. Glass, which are the other two amazing films in this series. She is not only a detrimental necessary character for this entire series, but she is an excellent character for this series. They chose very well, very, very well. The glasses did great. Like they both did awesome. The kid, he like most kid actors at that time, it wasn't great, but it wasn't terrible. It was better than the kid from Star Wars, that's for sure. The Anakin, little kid
No,
Anakin,
we
that was
just lost
awful.
1 million viewers. Hush.
I would say my favorite shots are there that shot where the passenger is dying while the doctor is talking to David. I really like the whole scene where Glass and his mother are talking, and the camera is just looking at like an old bubble TV, and the reflection coming off of that glass, and it's the whole scene is through that perspective, and I just think that's such a interesting, different, and cool like shot, and the other one was like there was like a shot where it was through a window and a curtain, and that was also just a crazy cool shot. I feel like I've never seen before except for in this movie. What about you, Kendi? Do you got a favorite shot?
For my favorite scenes, it's really when they're showing the touch sense that David has in the crowd. I know it's a lot and they're all very emotionally charged scenes, but
But it is
it's a
cool.
cool way to illustrate how he sees what's going on and how he picks who's a higher target.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Matt,
I'd have to say just for the visual is what I picked my favorite shot off of, but it's after the whole situation with Joseph and the gun, the mom Audrey and David they go to a bar and get a babysitter so that they can have some them time, have a date. And just
Yeah,
the opening scene where they're sitting in the middle of the shot and this beautiful mural is like warmly lit, and then there's the bustling of people, but you don't ever really realize it. It's focused in on David and Audrey and the art, and I think it's beautiful.
I agree.
they really made a very cozy scene.
So I would give this film a 4 out of 5. And the only reason I'm giving it a 4 is because I believe that in some points of the movie, it does get a little slow. But as a whole, I think this movie is spectacular. I am curious to what you guys actually think, though. So, Matt, what would you give this film?
I thought it was a great film, and I'm giving it a 5 out of 5.
Let's go. What about you, Candy?
I give the film a 4 out of 5. It is beautiful. It is well done. M. Night's not one of my favorite directors just because there is so much anxiety in his films, and that's just a personal thing for me. I don't like having to check my blood pressure throughout the whole movie, and he leaves it on that so much. And I know that's because there's other movies in the series, but this one got left on that high anxiety, like incomplete note for a long time.
For years.
They didn't
For
make the
years.
second movie in so long.
Because this movie came out in 2000 and Split didn't come out until 2016 because he had to make the money to be able to do whatever he wanted to make this movie.
Right, to get that creative license and people just leave him alone to tell a story.
Exactly. Because everybody was like, what is this? Like because Unbreakable needs Split and Mr. Glass in order to like fully make sense. And when he released Unbreakable, everybody was like, what is this? And then like it got that cult following, you know?
Yeah.
And once you get that cult following, you can start to do stuff.
Do
It took a
whatever
little
you want
while.
to do.
It's fun. And squad, we got 2 more parts for this going, and we got a special guest coming. Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh yeah. Much
So
excited.
that's coming up next, and we're gonna try to do that on the next take. So make sure you stay tuned for that. And as always, I have been Tyler,
I've been Matt.
I'm Kendi.
and we killed it.
We Killin' It podcast is written by us, Tyler Mislick, Kendra Parrish, and Matthew Johnson. Video is shot and edited by Matt, and it is produced, and the sound is done by Tyler. Thank you for listening.